everyone. Welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Linda Chiou. Linda was born in Waterloo, Ontario, and graduated from Simon Fraser University in Vancouver in 2013. Over the past 8 years, she has grown to become a social media influencer with over 500,000 audience on Instagram and a noteworthy leader in the fashion and beauty e-commerce space. She shares her personal story of quitting her 9-to-5 corporate job in order to pursue her own businesses. She is a dedicated entrepreneur with a passion for helping women start their own businesses in order to be financially independent and to live life to the fullest. In the process, she discovered that the uncertainty of making a leap in a career change can be daunting, but ultimately the reward, freedom, and happiness in the end is priceless. She currently resides in upstate New York. When she isn't working, you can find her spending time with family and friends, boating and barbecuing in Lake George with her husband and 2 long-haired chihuahuas. Linda, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you. And I think the word dedicated is an understatement with you because you are extremely dedicated. And I think we were talking right before we started recording the podcast that you're on Instagram for 11 years now. And that's amazing because you've been so consistent for so long. So let's hear about your story. Like, what was your upbringing like and how did you get the entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like social media for me over the years has just become a way of life. So looking back, I don't think I would have known that I would have relied on it so much, especially for my career. But it's all been such a great journey. You know, I grew up in Ottawa, Ontario, and it's really such a small, quiet town. My dad was a math professor, and my mom is a stay-at-home mom. So, you know, I had a pretty boring upbringing, I would say. I grew up with my younger sister. She was definitely always the brains of the family. I was always the more like creative, outspoken one. So she went on to become an accountant. And, you know, to be honest, I do feel really blessed because from a young age, my parents never pressured me to go in any direction for my career, even though I was so uncertain what I wanted to do. You know, I think my dad and my mom, they always said, you know, do what makes you happy. And so that's really been ingrained in me from a really young age. So I do feel blessed in that sense because I was able to just try out so many creative outlets and they really encouraged me to do whatever I wanted while I was younger. And I've always been really independent too, since as soon as I turned 16, I was like, the day I turned 16, I got my driver's license. I was like, I'm out of here. And actually the day I turned 16 too, and I'm not even sure if it's allowed back then, but I went and started applying for jobs. And that was like my form of independence. And I guess wanting to make my parents proud because I didn't necessarily do well in school, I think, when I was younger. So I was always excited to try new things, whether it was, you know, working retail or, my first job was working at a pizza store. I, always actually did e-commerce from when I was young. It actually started with just like me trying to sell my own clothes when I was like 16, 17. So I was always definitely trying to dive into a bunch of different things. And I've had always that entrepreneurial spirit.
Dang, you always been the hustler. Like, I love it. It's amazing to hear that story, right? Because like you always seek independence. And I feel like the people who actually go for things are people that make things happen. Right. And I guess that's sort of the opposite of the Asian mentality, where it's like I feel like most Asian parents don't want their kids to work at such a young age because they're like, you should focus on school, you should focus on doing that and this. But when you look at it, it's like you're gaining lifelong skills, right? Everything that you learn from you when you're a teenager, the independence is like it laid a foundation for you to overcome your struggles when you became an entrepreneur yourself, right? So I'm kind of curious too, like at what point did you realize that you want to start like a swimwear company? And more importantly, how'd you meet your partner? I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, so I ended up going off to university in Vancouver where I really knew nobody. And my business partner for Ivy Swimwear was actually my best friend. So I went off to Vancouver and she actually moved off to LA. We actually fell apart kind of for a few years while we were in school. And then I ended up moving back to Toronto. And it wasn't until I was in Toronto when I realized how hard it was to actually find a job that I loved doing. And after, I think it took me like 5 years to graduate university, I was just stuck in a job that I really felt unfulfilled in. And Linda and I grew up in Ottawa. Her name's also Linda. And so we decided to reconnect at some point, and we would always go on tropical vacations. So that was really how Ivy Swimwear was born. I remember, going on these vacations, we would kind of talk about our life goals and, the things we would want for our future. And that's kind of what brought us into, she had a passion for photography and I went to school for communications and business. So we were like, why don't we start a business together? And at the same time, being e-commerce and us being on opposite sides of the coast, we didn't necessarily have to be physically together in order to start a business, which is the great thing about e-commerce, in the world we live in today. So that's really how Ivy Swimmer was born. It was during one of our trips to Mexico.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy. It's so amazing hearing just the origin story of it. And I love how the both of you are named Linda, and I like love all of your photos together. And I think you guys are just like the perfect pair to, promote and market your brand. And I can tell you guys put so much emphasis and like effort into, just like posting videos and posting photos on your Instagram accounts. And Brian knows how much I love Ivy Swimwear. Like I'm always
She loves Ivy Swimwear.
Like always looking at the photos on the website. I'm like, oh my God, that one's so cute. And they have a new release.
Especially when she sees on you, Linda. She's
Yeah.
like, wow, like it
Like,
looks
oh
so
my God.
good on Linda. Like,
She
oh my
makes it
God.
look so good. Both of you guys, both you and the other Linda, like both of you guys look so good in it. And I think it's amazing how, your partner, she has an experience in photography, right? And you have experience in business and e-commerce, but did either of you have any experience in like designing, and were you guys in charge of all of the processes and like designing the different swimwears and releases and just like drawing them out? Because I see a lot of videos of and like photos of you drawing them out, right? But I'm very curious to know, like, did you ever have any experience in designing clothes or swimwear like that? And how did you pick up on that skill? And what was that process like, just learning the whole process?
To be honest, that was probably one of our biggest hurdles when we first started, because none of us had fashion design experience, apart from sketching stuff when we were younger. And so when we first started doing this, we were like trying to brainstorm if we wanted to just carry, what other people carry, and just scour the market for unique pieces, or if we actually want to venture in that unknown world of designing stuff ourselves. And I would say that was probably the biggest hurdle because we really had to learn everything on our own. But the bonus was that Linda was really good at sketching. So she does most of our sketches. We'll sit together, we'll brainstorm ideas. And we got really blessed with finding an amazing manufacturer, which actually also took like 1 to 2 years to finally really find someone who we worked well with. And I speak Mandarin too, so that's been really, really beneficial in communicating with manufacturers. But everything really we learned just through Googling, watching YouTube videos, like our manufacturer telling us like, don't submit designs like this, here's an example of what you should be submitting to us. So we definitely did have a lot of hurdles in the beginning where inventory came in wrong sizes, and stuff didn't fit properly, or just, barriers because of our inexperience. But it's been a really fun process for sure. And I'm definitely still learning.
I'm so glad you guys were able to overcome those hurdles, right? Because those things were the ones that set back all the entrepreneurs at the beginning. You're like, no, what, too hard, too difficult. I can't do this, right? And the fact that you're able to overcome that speaks volume. And I think what's even more amazing about your brand is that you live your brand. you are Ivy Swimwear. Like your content reflects that, your personality reflects that. You live the brand along with your partner too, right? So I think that's what sets you guys apart. What I'm really curious about was when you were initially launching Ivy Swimwear and you weren't getting the traction that you wanted, right? You weren't getting the sales, you weren't getting this and that. How did you keep yourself mentally going at the early standpoint where it's like, you know what? We're not going to give up. We're going to keep pushing until people start buying our product. And we're going to have to, at one point, I'm kind of curious, like at what point were you like, I'm going to be Ivy Swimwear and just start wearing my products everywhere and start doing more? I want to hear about that mindset transition at the beginning.
Yeah, it was really hard because in the beginning, actually, when we were doing product research, we actually ended up launching an entire collection of crochet bikinis, which ended up becoming our worst sellers. And honestly, that's where we put all of our investment into. So it took a lot for us to kind of start from scratch. And we actually ended up taking a small loan out from a friend. I think it was like $10,000 at the time. And we were like, we are just going to scrap everything. We're going to start from scratch, see where that, small loan takes us. And it was really just, I think that's why I really appreciated that as best friends, we could also be business partners, because definitely the two of us kept each other in check, and we always encouraged each other. And I think just seeing what other brands are doing out there always inspired us. Social media is really such an amazing tool because it's not really just to grow our own business, but we get so much inspiration and motivation from seeing other people's posts. So I think that's what really drove us, and we knew we couldn't give up because that was something we really wanted to do and make successful.
That's so amazing. I mean, for a lot of swimwear brands and companies, I feel like they kind of go through this hurdle of like, what should we do in the winter time, right? Because it's obviously like a seasonal product. More people buy more swimwear during the summer, right? When they're like going on vacation and to beaches and everything like that. So did you ever go through this time where like you kind of like question like, what should I do during the winter? Am I seeing results and sales in the winter as much as I am in the summer? And like, what was your marketing strategy like in the winter to make sure that you stayed relevant throughout the whole year?
Yeah, obviously summer is our peak season, but you'd be surprised. Like a lot of people in the winter are planning getaways. They're still planning vacations. So people are still shopping for swimwear. But we did notice the dip in traffic during winter. So our goal was always to start reaching out to, Australia, UK, Asia, places where it is summer during our winter time. So we did actually end up working with a digital marketing agency who helps us run like our Facebook ads, our Instagram ads. And I definitely noticed that helped boost our engagement, especially because, to be honest, we didn't even do any paid advertising until probably 2 years ago. So a lot of it was really just organic Instagram traffic. And it reached a point where we really just exhausted that. And I think we did probably start digital advertising way too late.
Go ahead,
Wow,
Ryan.
that's amazing. And I think that's a really good tip that you bring up too. I think that including us, right? And a lot of other Asian businesses that we talk to on the podcast, it's like there's always sort of this resistance to like pay ads at the beginning. Where it's like when you finally get into it, you're like, man, I should go into this earlier because the conversions is amazing. Right. So I think that's really good that you brought it up too. And I think it's really smart of you to strategically target places around the world because essentially your product is very global, right? Maybe winter here, but summer there. It's like I think a lot of us like tend to just focus on our target niche, where it's like our market is just Canada or United States, and we don't really think about that the world is actually much bigger than we think it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's even like when we first started, I think our priority was to design petite swimwear for Asian bodies. And especially ourselves, because we found it was really difficult to find swimwear that fit petite bodies. But over the years, we've had to expand on that too, just to grow the brand. So we're delving into other categories now, which is exciting. But I think sometimes people are so stuck on their niche that they don't want to like think outside of the box out of that. And
Yeah,
just you have to do that in order to innovate and keep up with the trends.
definitely. I definitely agree with that statement a lot. And I guess like the best thing I really like about entrepreneurship is the way that you can control the product based upon your own beliefs and your own style and your own personality, because that's very reflective throughout the product, right? And we noticed early on that you're probably one of the first person that we ever saw on social media like 5 6 years ago to actually put on events that are not like Victoria's Secret or like other big large conglomerate brands, where it's like we're seeing like the power to smaller business owners, the power to smaller creators. And I want to talk about that too. It was like, have you what was the best thing about creating Ivy Swimwear from an entrepreneur standpoint, in terms of like, wow, we can do this, we can create events, we can create pageant shows, we can create fashion shows. Like, what was that point where it's like, wow, we have the power to do anything and we're only limited by our own imagination? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, I think the biggest blessing and what I'm thankful for most throughout this journey is just all the amazing people we've met throughout this, through our start of the company who supported us, whether it's models, photographers, influencers, designers, publishers. We've really been blessed to meet such amazing people. And I know like influencer marketing is so big right now, building these communities around you that really support the brand and the brand message. That's definitely been the most rewarding for myself. It's just creating that hub of loyal followers and people who really see your vision and believe in the brand. Being able to achieve my goal of going to Miami Swim Week, that's really fulfilling. And I think that's like a check off the bucket list. But being able to really build out this network of people who believe in my vision, I think that's the most rewarding part of this whole process.
That's amazing. And it is so amazing just seeing the community that you've built. And I love that the way that you portray your brand and yourself is like, it's not only just Ivy Swimwear, right? You talk about your personal life, you show like your community of friends. And I think that's what resonates with a lot of, not only girls, but like guys who are like interested in your journey as well, because you're really like showing
You're
who
a
you are.
hustler.
You're a hustler. And like, it's so important to have close friends around you and community members. And I think that's why people are always like, wow, Ivy Swimwear, like I want to have like friends like this, or like I want to, have a community like this. So it's just amazing, like the image that you portray, because it's just so honest and authentic. I want to know, after creating Ivy Swimwear, I'm sure there were a lot of lessons that you had learned along the way, and this was your first, big company that you had built. And then after that, you started Lavelle Beauty Academy, right? And kind of want to know, like, what were the lessons that you applied to Lavelle that you learned from Ivy Swimwear, and why you decided, like, when was it that you decided, like, this is the time for me to start a new company, and how I'm going to go about it, right? Like, I want to know what was going through your mind at that time.
Honestly, Lavelle Beauty Academy kind of fell into my lap because we did actually a photo shoot for Ivy Swimwear. And my sister had introduced me to a makeup artist at the time. And she actually is one of my closest friends now. Her name's Erica. And I ended up partnering with her to create Lavelle Beauty Academy, probably like shortly after meeting, because she just had so many ideas and so much talent, but she didn't know how to really turn that into a viable business. And I saw it as something that we could really, have a lot of success building together too, because, having success with Ivy Swimwear with Linda, a lot of people had told me, I don't think you should do business with friends. I completely disagreed, because we did have success in that and we worked well together. So Lavelle Beauty Academy was just kind of born naturally when me and Erica started brainstorming business ideas. And that just is such an incredible journey for me, because we've really managed to branch this business out from coast to coast. We have classes in Vancouver, Calgary, New York now, and it's just been such an amazing time being able to travel and, find other talented instructors out there. So that's really been such an incredible journey. And to be honest, I didn't build the confidence to quit my 9-to-5 corporate job until I had 2 stable side hustles. For me, that was just my path and my comfort level. I wasn't as big of a risk taker in that sense. And I didn't want to risk it all per se. You kind of think like, wow, I went to university all these years to get my corporate job. And it was hard for me to let go, even though I've always been so entrepreneurial. So it wasn't until, I guess, 2 years into, 2-3 years into building Ivy and a year into building Lavelle that I actually quit my corporate job. So I stayed in my corporate job for almost 4 years while doing my side hustles.
Oh my
Oh my
goodness.
God, that is crazy.
That's crazy.
I
I
didn't
did
know
not know
that.
that. I didn't know that either. I thought that you were just working on Ivy and,
Yeah.
because it became so successful. So I thought like you must be so busy already that you wouldn't even have time for a 9 to 5.
I
And
literally had no life for the first 4 years that I lived in Toronto. And to be honest, I probably had no friends after moving from Vancouver to Toronto either, like maybe just 2 friends, which maybe was a good thing at that time because I was just like fully engulfed in my business. But at the same time, both of my businesses were my passions with my friends. So to me, working was like hanging out with my friends, and that's just what I love to do.
Yeah, damn, I don't even know what to say to that. That's amazing because I because I'm total opposite. Whenever I feel like, oh my God, we have something, I just jump and I just leave my job, right? And that's just me. And for you, it's like we always consider you as a top tier entrepreneur in our book, where it's like, all right, we need to go talk to Linda. She's definitely very high on our list to have the podcast. To hear that you have faced your internal struggles of letting go of that job. It's so relatable to a lot of us, especially Asian Hustle Network, that have side hustles that are like, okay, like maybe against my Asian beliefs, Asian culture, that to leave this for uncertainty, right? Because whether we like it or not, that Asian value that our parents instilled in us of having a safe job, of having a safe career, not wasting your career, it's always going to be in the back of our head. And huge congratulations on taking that jump into becoming a full-time entrepreneur. But everything you've shown us during this podcast is step by step, right? Nothing happens overnight.
Yeah.
And when we look at you from a social media perspective, we're like, wow, like she definitely has it all together. She's well put together. Like she must have some sort of superpower. And this is what's great about this podcast, because we get to uncover that, understand, and like discover more about yourself. And particularly, I'm kind of curious too, because I mean, I know we mentioned earlier before the podcast that we did look into each other's background a little bit more. And I looked into your husband's background and I'm like, wow, this guy's a real estate developer. And you guys kind of mirror each other in some ways, where it's like you're focused on your business, he's focused on his business, but you guys know how to have fun as a couple, right?
I think that's really, really important, is just that work-life balance. As much as we hustle, we always want to make sure that we have that time to just get away, enjoy life, spend quality time together. That way we can come back to our work and our goals, refreshed. And that's what life is all about. It's about balance. You can't do too much work all the time. You can't have too much fun and play all the time. And for me, I think also that's why it was so important for me to build that passive income and having multiple streams of income. And my husband has really been able to teach me that too. So, I've learned a lot from him, and I'm diving into real estate now, and I'm getting my real estate license. So I feel like I'm always learning and growing. And when people, come to me for advice on starting their own businesses, I always tell them, like, go for it. Take the risk, whether it fails or it succeeds, like the best thing you can say is at least you tried, and then you can start to try to build those multiple streams of revenue for themselves.
that's amazing. I always see like pictures of you and your husband, and it's so inspiring to see, because like whenever he gets featured on like a magazine or something, you would, amplify it and elevate him and, lift him up and everything like that. And then he does the same for you, right? And I think that's such a healthy balance. And you guys definitely portray like, it's really important to have fun while working hard. And you guys are just like the ultimate power couple. It's just really amazing to see that.
You guys are my idol.
And I can see like you're getting into real estate too, like you're posting the
Your
Airbnb, and
Airbnbs.
yeah, it's just so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I feel like in life, people go through stages.
Yeah.
Your passions change, your priorities change. So you got to always tap into those, thoughts in the back of your mind and just go for it. Life is about happiness. It's not all about money, so you got to do what makes you happy and what fuels your passions.
Definitely. You can't tell already. We're obviously very huge fans of you. We've been following you for a very long time now. Hopefully it's not scary as we're talking about this. But the next topic I want to talk about is like mental health, right? And because this is just a huge topic nowadays because of the pandemic, we're putting a lot more emphasis on mental health. And you've been in the social media game for so long now. Like, how have you been taking care of yourself? Because we know from our perspective that we can't really, every time we see like someone's Instagram or social media, it's a highlight reel, right? And what that fails to ignore is like those times where you're crying, those times where you're struggling, there's times where you feel like you can't do this. And we want to talk about that and bring more light to that. Can you kind of talk about some of your lowest moments of doing your business where it's like, I don't know if I can do this, how can I overcome it? And how'd you manage to like push yourself through during these darkest times?
Like especially being so present and putting myself out there on social media, getting that like daily criticism and negative feedback or people just trying to bring you down, that's something that's almost on a daily basis. Like I've learned to not really even go through my DMs anymore, because at the same time, it's like I just want to stay focused, have my tunnel vision, and there's always going to be haters or people who are not truly happy for you. Especially when I started Ivy Swimwear in the beginning, there was so much criticism, and like we were taking photos of ourselves because obviously we didn't have the budget to shoot models, and people would make fun of that. So, on one end, people would be like, wow, great job for shooting yourself and putting yourself out there. On the other end, people would be like, you're not a model. Why are you doing that? Like, it doesn't look good. So I've gotten, comments from both spectrums. And over the years, the most important thing for me is my mental health and my internal happiness. So I literally just turn that off like a switch. Like if I see a negative comment, I will just block and delete it, and I've always been such a positive person. I think it's so important to just focus on yourself, focus on your own vision, and just know that if you do have haters or negative comments, it's because you're doing something right, so just to keep staying positive. And it's just unfortunate that the younger generation, I think, is going to be really impacted by social media, because that's really how everyone's growing up now. And they put so much emphasis on having to like look good on social media, having to be loved on social media. And it's really how it shouldn't be. So, I do want my content to be more authentic. I try to post, stories on the daily just to show what my daily life is like, ups and downs, and it's just, I get it though, staying truly authentic to your audience, it's not always possible because people want to post the best that they can show. They want to talk about their successes and not necessarily their failures. So that's tough. And, I know people are talking about that more and trying to be more aware of that. Like Instagram is hiding likes just for people's mental health. So I do think these topics around mental health are important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say, like, you're so mentally strong. I think it's very, very easy to be, indulge into these comments. And especially, like you mentioned, the new generation or the next generation, all they know is social media. So they look to social media a lot, right? But no matter what you do, whether you are successful or whether, you're just trying, you're bound to get hateful comments. Every time people will see you like trying to do something, you're going to get criticism. So it's just amazing to hear you like know what your boundaries are and to know like when to block out comments when you don't want to read them.
And you're a lot stronger than me, to be honest. I think I get some negative comments once in a while. I'm like, ow, that hurts. I don't want to do anything anymore. You guys hurt my feelings.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, I'm not kidding, but I meant in a way where I do get kind of butthurt. I'm just like, wow, there's all this hate coming from. I'm trying to do something good here.
A virtual hug.
But yeah, I'm kind of curious too. Like, have you ever, I mean, do you have any routines that you practice on a daily basis to kind of keep yourself going, where you wake up, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, Linda, I got this? Linda, I'm gonna smile every day no matter what. Because you mentioned earlier that you are a very positive person, right? But like as human beings, you're not always positive all the time. Sometimes you wake up and you're like, I don't want to do shit. I just want to relax. I don't want to do anything. But
Yeah.
like the thing with you and the thing that we really admire with you is like how consistent you are, right? And that comes to show like how much you want it. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's like even if you want something bad enough, you get discouraged and you kind of just stop. But the thing is that I feel like you keep going no matter what. You continuously post like almost on a daily basis, almost every day, something, a story, post, whatever. But like, I just want to learn more about that willpower that you have inside and like how'd you teach yourself to become so consistent, right? Because I think that compared to other social media influencers that are coming up with your TikTok right now, like you are the one going to feel that's you don't even it's very undefined at the time. And for you to make an undefined field and be consistent about it, I want to know what the thought power, the willpower that you had, the internal voices in your head to tell you to keep on moving.
I mean, from the beginning, I think it's just become like a way of life for me. I don't know, almost like a habit. Like I want to share, I want to keep adding to my feed. I want people to follow my journey. But at the same time, even though it does feel like I post a lot, I do have days off, weeks off, where I just need that mental break. And I think that's healthy. Sometimes I don't even check in. Like I might post something, but I won't even check in to the comments or anything. I'll post it and then put my phone away. And I think I've gotten better at that recently because, I do think that my brain is just going in so many directions that sometimes I just need that mental break from Instagram. And, I like to clear my mind. I like to do yoga. I like to do Pilates. We really took the time to set up our home gym just to have me time, self-care. And in the mornings, I don't want to like put so much pressure on myself all the time to be like, I have to get this, and this done. But at the beginning of a month, I will like to write down like, these are my few goals this month, but I'll do it on my own timeline throughout the month, and obviously that goes back to us liking to have playtime too, because working all the time, it's just so stressful. So I think it's important to just make time for yourself, time to recharge. And I think that's just how I stay so consistent with my social media, because to me, it's not all about social media. It benefits my business and it's healthy for me to stay in touch with my friends in that sense. But I don't live and breathe and have to read every comment, on my social media, because that would just be, really, I think, unhealthy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love that you have that perfect balance, and it's so important to make sure that you're having fun in that process, right? I think especially this whole like hustle culture, we always think about like work hard, work hard, work hard, and we're like always talking about working hard, and we never think about making sure that we have fun or have a balance. So I love that you kind of found your balance, and you're re-emphasizing that to your community. We also know that you had spoken at TED Talk recently.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. What was that like? And what was going through your mind at the time? I'm sure that was such a big accomplishment for you. And, so amazing for you to share with the audience of like cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset. Obviously, you've already dropped so many like good stuff on this podcast. And I'm sure, that TED Talk was amazing as well. What was your thought process like when you were asked to speak at TED Talk,
And we
and
can't believe that
how was
was your
that
first
experience like?
time
Yeah,
too.
that's that's amazing.
You're such a natural.
No, I was so nervous. I think I got really lucky because I did have a coach. He helped me through, just my body language. He helped me with what I wanted to say so I could really verbally like portray what I wanted to say in a proper way. That TED has a lot of guidelines too, where your speech can't necessarily flow in a certain way. So I did get a lot of guidance and support. And I'm not sure if you could tell from the video, but there was actually no live audience. So that was definitely,
We couldn't tell.
yeah, it
Honestly, we
was
couldn't
Yeah,
tell.
definitely out of my comfort zone. And I don't know if I would have done it if there was a live audience, but apparently that was the last filming during COVID, where they would do it without an audience, because of COVID restrictions. And it was actually really random. One of my close friends from university had reached out to me in Vancouver. And she actually became a TED organizer. We kind of lost touch for almost 10 years, I would say. And one day she just reached out to me and we reconnected. And I think, and that's really what I love so much about social media, is that it just connects people from around the world, and you can touch base with people who you've lost touch with for years, you know. And she's just been such a great friend to me in the past. And I love that she has the full mentality of, you know, women supporting women, providing women these opportunities to go on stage and tell their story. So I felt so honored when she reached out to me. And, you know, I planned my trip, everything. I had to fly back to Vancouver, get my vaccination just for this trip and everything. So it was really exciting putting all of the wheels in action and actually seeing myself on a TED stage. It was definitely nerve-wracking.
No, you did great. And we're happy to hear that too. I mean, we couldn't even tell, like there's no audience, couldn't even tell you're nervous in any way. I think you got your points across really, really well. Right. So huge congratulations. And what surprised us that we saw a post saying that this is your first time speaking at something like that. Right. You're just so boss, everything you do. You're just vibe, just complete boss. You're just like you got it under control. I got this. Right. And that kind of leads me down like a segment too, where it's like, I think at this point in your career, I can honestly say that you're very successful. Like you have two businesses that are doing really well. Like your house in upstate New York is amazingly beautiful,
Thank you.
right? What I'm really curious about is that I feel like with entrepreneurship, when you reach a certain point where you have like, okay, like things are going really well, you tend to feel a bit unfulfilled. You tend to feel a bit unhappy because you're always asking yourself, and especially with entrepreneurs, what is next,
Yeah.
right? So how do you deal with that chase where it's like that feeling where it's like I'm not happy anymore because I'm seeking a challenge? And how do you like know when to stop, when's enough, when should I be happy? Because I'm curious to hear more.
I mean, that's a tough question, you know, because I think as an entrepreneur, we're just such go-getters, and it's always like go, 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 on to the next. I don't like to think of it, you know, in a negative way, though. I like to think of it as I'm always learning and growing, and I want to try new things. But of course, there is a limit. Like I can only do so much in a day. And if I'm putting all of my efforts on to this direction, I'm neglecting these other businesses. So my goal has always been just to make sure I can get a business self-sufficient, self-running, and then kind of move on to the next adventure. But definitely throughout the years, you know, I still have a long way to grow and a lot of goals that I want to accomplish for my own businesses. But I think something that I've just discovered along the way that I feel really, really great about is really being able to help other people achieve their goals too. So that's been really fulfilling. And that's something that's always going to be ongoing for me. So I think, you know, just this year doing the TED Talk, and, you know, you guys are my very first podcast. I definitely want to do more things like this and really just be able to spread the message, and whether it's like encourage, inspire other people to chase their dreams. That's, you know, this is really new and scary to me, but I'm definitely going to keep putting myself out there.
So amazing. I mean, I still can't believe this is your first podcast, because just when you're speaking, you're like so natural. I remember like when Brian and I were talking about bringing you onto the podcast, I was trying to find interviews from you and Linda, and I couldn't find any. Like there was probably like one video that I found where I like saw you guys talking, but other than that, like we couldn't really find any. And it's just so surprising because you're just so natural, and you know exactly, you know, what you're talking about, and you're just very, very comfortable in your own skin. So just amazed by that.
Thank you. I mean, you guys are amazing. I feel like you're giving me a lot of confidence right now.
Oh
No,
my
they're not
gosh.
compliment. We're just being honest.
Yeah. But just hearing about your journey and all of the experience that you've had and how much you have, you know, grown. I want to know like how you have seen yourself grow. You know, obviously with starting Ivy Swimwear, you know, since the first day of starting that company while you were still working your 9 to 5, there were probably a lot of things that you have learned, right? And maybe that came with imposter syndrome or anything like that. So how have you seen yourself grow in a more like mentally and emotionally kind of way?
Yeah, you know, when I look back to that day where I really decided to quit my corporate job and go full force into the entrepreneurial world, I was so scared. And, at that time, I just got out of a long-term relationship. Like I already had so many failed businesses prior to that. So it was a huge step for me. If I could, talk to my previous self, I would definitely just tell myself, one step at a time. Don't put so much expectation on yourself, because life is not built out in cookie cutter. Like everyone has their own timeline. Don't compare yourself to other people. Just focus on yourself, and that's what's going to lead you to ultimate happiness. And when I look back now, I'm so grateful for all the decisions that I made, and just putting myself out there and quitting my 9 to 5, taking that leap of faith. Because if I didn't, I mean, I don't even know how my life would have turned out. I was so unhappy at the time in my corporate job, and that's something that I knew was 100%. So I just really took that leap of faith. And I think that if someone isn't fulfilled in their life, they really need to reflect, do some self-reflection, and try to understand what it is that makes themselves truly happy. Because at the end of the day, you spend I'm probably exaggerating, but 80% of your life working. So if your job is something that's not making you happy, then you really got to reanalyze and focus on what your true goals are in life.
Absolutely agree with that statement. Always about realignment with your goals and your values and who you are, right? That's how you stay happy. If you're outside that alignment, it's like, oh man, where's my life going? What am I doing? So it's great that you're bringing up a really important point too, is that reflection is a big part of growth. Reflection is a big part of being an entrepreneur and making sure that you're going in the right direction. And shout out to that. And I could tell that you had a lot of practice too, because I realized during this podcast, even though it's your first podcast, you don't say ums or ahs. And that's
I don't.
I know. I probably say more ums than Linda has.
I know. I think Maggie said like 5 ums already.
I love it.
Linda, what's next for you? Like, what do you see happening for you in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think I've really found a newfound passion in real estate. I really want to go full force in that. I love interior design and decorating, and it's like a whole new world for me. I think with, my beauty academy, my fashion business and real estate, I'm going to be fully engulfed. So business venture wise, I don't think I'm going to think of anything else outside of that in the meantime. But in the next 10 years, I think it's just a lot of big life changes for me, my wedding is happening and I've really settled life into here. I do want things to start slowing down a little bit. And, we're talking about having kids in the next 2 years. So I think it's really just after hustling so much, I really just want to slow down, enjoy life. It's the little things that matter, and just really sit back and kind of focus on family and quality time.
I love it. I mean,
I
yes. Yeah, if anyone watches Linda's Instagram stories, her interior design skills are amazing. And just like watching the progress of your little herbs growing, it's just like
that's a newfound passion of mine too. I'm turning into a housewife. I'm like the Asian Martha Stewart. I love decorating, cooking, finding new recipes. This stuff really brings me so much joy. Just cooking dinner, making the pillows on my couch look beautiful. So it's definitely new Linda.
I love it. So, Linda, we have one last question for you, and that is, if you could give one advice to an aspiring entrepreneur, what would that advice be?
The most important thing is just to believe in yourself. Don't listen to what other people say. Again, there's always going to be people who are negative, people who are trying to bring you down. You're the only person that sees your vision. And if you don't put 110% into it, then no one else is going to do it for you. So be 100%, be fully committed, have that dedication and persistence, and build that life that you can dream of. So it's all up to you.
I love that. I love that a lot. Believing in yourself goes a long way, especially when you're just starting out. It's like people can't see what you want. People can't see what you're trying to do, and it's like a process. So right, where it's like they doubt you, and then they believe in you, and now they want to be like you, and that's where you are right now. So Linda, how can our listeners find out more about you and reach out to you online?
Definitely Instagram. You know, I'm always there. I'm gonna continue to be consistent throughout all my life changes. You know, I've just enjoyed so much sharing my life on social media. So at least for now, I'll be definitely always on Instagram, and you know, people can still send me DMs, and I do filter through and reply to ones that, you know, have genuine inquiries. So definitely Instagram.
Definitely. And we'll leave all that in show notes. But Linda, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. We're so honored to be your first podcast ever. And we
Yay.
hope to continue seeing you do more podcasts in the future.
Thank you guys for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Linda. We had such a great time interviewing you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.